Hi guys! We meet again in our class Introduction to General Linguistics. How are you today? I do hope that all of you are healthy and happy to join our class. Today we are going to talk about language features. As you know, our language is so special and there are some features that characterize our language. Hackett said that we have some features, some special features in our language. The first one is what we call mode of communication. Then the second one is semanticity. The third one is pragmatic function. And then we have interchangeability, cultural transmission. We also have what we call arbitrariness, and then discreteness, displacement, and productivity. We'll talk about the features one by one. Let us start from mode of communication. What can you see in this picture? Yes, this is the picture of a communication process. I believe that everyone agrees that we use the language as the means by which the messages are transmitted and received in the communication process. And when we communicate, we use particular signals which are communicative and informative. In the process of communication, humans used what we call sound signals, gestures, and signs. What about animals? How do they communicate? Do they have the same process, or do they use the same way or the same mode that we use in our communication? Let us see what's going on in animal communication. Here we have some animals. How do they communicate to their friends? Let us start from birds, whales, and then frogs, crickets, and also rattlesnakes. How do they communicate? Yes, you're right. They communicate using sound. What about dogs and also apes? Do they also use sound? Dogs and apes communicate not only using sound but also gestures and body posture. They also use what we call the facial expression. Now, let us talk about fireflies. I think everyone knows that fireflies communicate using lights. What about rhinos? Rhinos can communicate with each other using touch and also nozzle. And ants. Most of us know that ants always touch the antenna when they meet to each other. But when they touch the antenna here, they share the pheromones or a special chemical substance that they use to communicate. Now, what about fish and amphibians? Fish and amphibians communicate using the electric signals, and bee will use a different kind of signal, not in the form of lights, not in the form of electricity, not in the form of touch, but bees communicate to each other using a particular dance. So bee will dance to to express what they have in their mind. Now, from our discussion about the animals' communication process here and also how we communicate, then we can draw conclusion that here signals are property of own species. That means that every species has their own way to communicate to each other. So this is the first feature of our language. Now, what about the second feature? The second feature is semanticity. What is meant by semanticity? Semanticity is related to meaning. That means that all signals in a communication system have a meaning or a function. Let us see one example here. We have the word fly. This word may refer to a particular item or thing. It might refer to an animal, as you can see here in this picture, and it can also refer to a particular action. To fly a plane, for example. When we have the word fly in isolation, then it is difficult for us to identify the most appropriate meaning. But when we use it in a particular context, then we can see what exactly the meaning is. When I say something like, he flies the kite, it means that this is an action, right? But when you say that is a fly over there, here we refer to a particular animal. So we do have meaning. The third feature is what we call pragmatic function. Pragmatic function. This feature highlights that communication system must serve some useful purposes. So, what does it mean? It means that when we say something, we have the purpose why we say that. For example, we say something to help individuals stay alive, or to influence others' behavior, or to find out more about the world. Let us see the example here. What can you see in this picture here? So here there is a lady who is asking for help, right? And unfortunately, the man seems not really pay attention to that lady. Instead of saving the lady, then the man is taking a picture. The second example in this picture, in the second picture here, the lady and the man in blue is they are trying to influence the man in the middle's behavior, or maybe they are trying to interrogate the old man over there. Then the third one here, we can do many things when we are talking about this word, right? You can ask questions, you can share information. There are many things that we can do, or there are many purposes that we can have when we use language. The next feature is what we call interchangeability. So do you remember this picture? Yes, this is what's going on when we communicate to each other. In the process of communication, there are two parties, sender and receiver. Based on what you have in this picture, the sender sends messages, right? And then the receiver gives feedback to the sender. Now, when the sender transmitted the messages, of course, here we call this figure as sender. Now, what about when this person gives the feedback? Now, this person is the sender and this person is the receiver. So the role is different, or the role is interchangeable. So what does interchangeability mean? So interchangeability means that we do have the ability to transmit and to receive messages. I might be the sender, but in a different time, I will be the receiver. I do hope that it is clear enough. Next is cultural transmission. What can you see in the two pictures here? What happens to the three old men over there and the boy? It seems like they are learning something, right? If you see the man in blue, he is learning French. But I believe that maybe he is not from France, or he is not French. Cultural transmission here is related to the way how we learned a particular language. So human language can be acquired only through communication interaction with other users of the system. And we do need a process of learning. So our our mind here, our genetic or hereditary background has no influence on the language that we acquire as a child. For example, look at this child. If this child is born in Klaten, for example, then maybe he will acquire Japanese and Indonesian as the first language, especially if the parents decide to introduce Japanese or Indonesian as the mother tongue of their son. But if this boy is born in London, for example, and the parents are not Japanese or are not Indonesian, he will not acquire Japanese language or Indonesian language, but maybe English or French or Spanish. It depends on the parents. How the parents communicate to each other will influence the language that this child acquired. And this child cannot directly use the language. What I mean is like this. When this boy was born, then he cannot say, "Mommy, I'm hungry, I want to eat." No. That is a process that this boy should experience first before he can say, "Mommy, I'm hungry, I want to eat," right? So that is a process of learning. This is what we call cultural transmission. What about the dog? Of course, a dog does not need a process of learning because the language or the mode that the dog used to communicate is not culturally transmitted but genetically transmitted. It means that right from the time a puppy is born, then the puppy can acquire exactly the same language as the mother. So this is cultural transmission. That is the process of transmitting the language through the culture. The next feature is what we call arbitrariness. Arbitrariness means that the meaning is not predictable from the form. there isn't any connection between the form and the meaning. But when we talk about non-arbitrary form, it means that the meaning and the form are connected, and this is iconic. The examples like this, when we talk about this picture, do you know why we call this thing a tree? I think we cannot really explain why we call it a tree, right? Or why when we say table, then what we have in our mind is something like this one, okay? And this is table. And why we call this mouth and why we call this nose? There is no explanation that can satisfyingly explained why we name it like that. So this is arbitrariness. Next one is discreteness. Have you ever played Scrabble? What do you do when we play Scrabble? At the first time we have the letters, right? And then we try to arrange the letters in such a way to make words. For example, in this illustration, we have the word let's play. So we have let's, L-E-T-S, and then play, P-L-A-Y. Here, the word play consists of play, P-L-A, and A, right? Now, it means that when we are talking about discreteness, then it will be related to the property of language that allow the users to combine together discrete units in order to create larger communicative units. So we have the sounds P, L, and then A, play, to make the word play. So we have three phonemes to make one morpheme or one word, play, as larger units here. What is the advantage of having this feature? If we go back to the phonemes or the sounds that we have in English, for example, we do have limited number of sounds. But how many words do we have in English? There are a lot, even maybe we cannot count it, right? It means that we can generate a large number of meaningful elements from only few meaningless units, that is sounds. And here we also have the term duality of patterning. So we can organize the elements as individuals, as the individual sounds, or as larger units. That is the meaning of duality. The next feature is what we call productivity. How many words do you have in this picture? We have the, lace, in, hand, and then nest and X. But we can produce many constructions with those words, right? And this is what is meant by productivity. Every day we can always make new sentences and new phrases. Even we can make new words, because our language has a particular ability that in which it enables us to produce novel utterances to be built up out of discrete units. So this is productivity. We also have this feature, displacement. And do you know why I put this feature? We have facts, and then we have the picture of someone who is calling somebody else. I think every day we do have this activity, right? Making a phone call. Now, when we talk about displacement, then it is related to the ability of language to communicate about things, actions, ideas, and so on that are not present in space or time while the speakers are communicating. This is why we can talk about fact, but we can also tell a lie. We can also tell what we have in our mind about our future, something that is not happening now. Or we can also talk about something that already happened in the past. And we can talk to our mother who is not here. You can talk to your boyfriends or to your girlfriends who live in different cities or different regions. Because we have this feature. We have displacement feature. And I think we are so lucky that we have this feature because we can enjoy movies, we can build relationship with others who are not together with us. Now this is displacement. This means no, place means place, and then ment is the suffix that is used to make a noun. So no place. Now here we can see that our language is so complex, so wonderful, and we should be grateful to have this kind of language. And I do hope that by learning those features that we can use the language wisely in our daily life. Thank you.